Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Committee of the Whole. We begin our meeting by acknowledging that we are holding this meeting on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish people, specifically the Lekwungen-speaking people known today as the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations, that their connections to these lands continue to this day. I also want to point out that we do live stream these meetings, and the videos will be available and archived later for viewing. So should you come up to the microphone, you will be recorded in that process. I'll just start off our meeting. We have minutes of the Committee of the Whole of May 21st and Council of May 27th.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any changes, errors, omissions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Mayor's remarks, pretty short, but I just want to thank all the volunteers of the Oak Bay Tea Party who put together a pretty fantastic event, especially Sandy Germain, the chair, and Stephanie Greaves, who was the new MC this year, did a fantastic job. A lot of great, incredible music this year. That's what really struck me. So thanks also to all the councillors who participated by judging and doing other activities in the parade. It's not the easiest of jobs to do, but you all did a great job on that. I also should thank the mayors who participated in the teacup race. It was a lot of fun, that event. With that, I think we're probably a little short of people tonight because the Raptors game is on. I recognize that, so I won't make long speech here. But I also just want to recognize the Oak Bay High grads had their convocation on June 5th. I had the honor of going and attending that, and it was very inspiring to see all those young adults looking spectacular and off to their next adventures in their life. Next up on the agenda is the public participation period, and this is the point where people from the public can get up and speak to points of interest related to Oak Bay. If anybody wishes to come forward. We have someone, I think, representing the Blue Dot Initiative, so you're welcome to have the first slot there. And the process, just so you understand, each speaker is allocated up to 3 minutes. We have a total of 20 minutes available for this section of the agenda. Your light will turn green when you start speaking, and it'll turn yellow at 30 seconds left, and then time's up. And if you just state your name, and I think you did it already, but just write your name as well so we have the correct spelling for the minutes. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Oak Bay, David Blako at 2325 Lincoln in Oak Bay. My issue is that other CRD municipalities have endorsed the Blue Dot Initiative, so why not Oak Bay? Just a quick reminder that I have submitted 3 additional documents to Council. One's a PowerPoint presentation, another one is the Model Blue Dot Declaration, and a letter requesting a meeting to the Committee of the Whole. So what is Blue Dot? Blue Dot was started in 2014 by the Suzuki Foundation, and it's based on a simple belief that people have the right to breathe fresh air, drink clean water, and eat healthy food. So combined, these 3 basic beliefs are the core elements of what it means to the right to a healthy environment and also the Blue Dot Initiative. That's pretty simple. The long-term goal of Blue Dot is to amend Canadian legislation to include these basic rights and to join the other 110 countries in the world that have already incorporated these rights into their legislation. So far, 112 Canadians have sort of signed up to Blue Dot, asking all levels of government to recognize the right to breathe fresh air, drink fresh water, and eat healthy food. The Blue Dot Declaration is a document that is being used to demonstrate support for the right to a healthy environment. Support is widespread, and the Blue Dot Initiative, support is widespread. Our local MP, Murray Rankin, has signed the Blue Dot Declaration, and there's over 173 municipalities that have also signed on. So Saanich, Victoria, Highlands, Souk, Sydney, Central Saanich, North Saanich, View Royal, and the Capital Regional District has also signed. Municipalities smaller than Oak Bay have also signed on. So Zabalas, Cumberland, Bowen Island, Tofino, Ucluelet are some examples there. 5 years into the initiative, there's still a strong need to demonstrate wide support for the right to a healthy environment, more so now than ever because the federal election is also looming this fall. So endorsing Blue Dot provides a great opportunity for the new council to demonstrate to Oak Bay citizens that they are interested in their well-being. Blue Dot can be used, in the decision-making processes and also strategic planning processes at Oak Bay. And the Blue Dot Endorsing Blue Dot also helps all Oak Bay citizens, young, old, and future generations, to understand sort of policy decisions if those decisions are linked back to the three sort of core beliefs. So our request is that, similar to Oak Bay joining other CRD municipalities in declaring a climate emergency, we're asking the municipality to again officially join the CRD municipalities and endorse the Blue Dot declaration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Blako.
Good evening. My name is Sophia Spardakis. I live at 1903 Hampshire. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on this issue. I feel somewhat presumptuous coming before you because I've only lived in Oak Bay for just under a year. But some places enter your heart faster than others, and you can feel strongly enough about an issue it's vital to speak up. As I take my daily walks, I'm overwhelmed by the immense beauty of Oak Bay, but also concerned about how precarious its existence may be. Each day, all of you work diligently for this community, for its sustainability. You've already demonstrated your commitment to environmental issues by joining other CRD municipalities in declaring a climate emergency and enunciating a goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. I recognize that you must be inundated with citizen requests for you to adopt, declare, and support various initiatives, and that it is a challenge to balance myriad competing interests. You may be cautious in making declarations because one may lead to another. But I respectfully ask you to consider this request as transcending the usual and the normal. Each era is confronted with a defining issue. In facing and tackling it, normal process must bend a bit in the name of meaningful action. The environment and the degradation we humans are wreaking on this planet is our defining issue. If we don't act boldly, we will soon run out of time. When I learned about your approval of a climate emergency declaration, I became even more convinced that the Blue Dot Declaration for a Healthy Environment fits well with your vision for this community. One can hope that a climate emergency will have a finite timeline. The Blue Dot Declaration takes us beyond emergency to a statement of principle and intent for the development of coherent and long-term environmental planning approaches, so that going forward, communities and governments will make consistent and preventive decisions. In making such a declaration, you would stand with 173 other municipalities, representing nearly half the country's population. In many ways, it is at the municipal level that crucial decisions are made and principles enunciated that have the greatest impact on the citizenry. The declaration is a call to humanity, to community, to hope, and to recognition that we must all do whatever is in our power to bring back harmony to our environment. I'll close with a quote that has always resonated with me from the wonderful play Inherit the Wind. Progress has never been a bargain. You have to pay for it. You may conquer the air, but the birds will lose their wonder and the clouds will smell of gasoline. We cannot go back to a pre-industrial age, and we cannot paralyze ourselves with despair or guilt over the environmental mistakes we have made. But we can say enough. A new paradigm will govern our behavior and we will make it work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Spardakis. Is there anyone else who wishes? Please come forward. Again, if you could just write your name on the sheet, and then you have your 3 minutes.
Okay. So hello, Your Honor and members of the Council. My name is Dorothy Hodgins, and I will be speaking in place of Anastasia Castro tonight. I'm a resident of Saanich and a student at UVic studying environmental studies, political science, and Indigenous studies. I'm involved in UVic Divest, and I will be taking over UVic Dogwood as chair in the fall. I'm addressing you today regarding my concern for our current global ocean plastics crisis, and specifically how BC as a province is contributing to it. Recently, the Ocean Legacy Foundation released a report stating that each day in BC, over 1 million beverage containers and 2.3 million beverage container caps are not getting recycled and are ending up in landfills, oceans, waterways, and other land-based dumping sites. BC has been in a state of year-over-year decline in recycling rates, specifically when it comes to the beverage containers, which are consumed on the go. The plastic water bottles and sport drink bottles, which are included in this, are a top seller and contribute to 390,000 of those daily missing millions. The Ocean Legacy Foundation is recommending to 1. Raise regulated deposits to a level that incents people to recycle their beverage containers. Expand the system to include all types of beverage containers, such as milk, cream, and dairy alternatives. Require producers to collect and report on beverage container caps. Raise regulated collection targets, and enforce regulated targets in meaningful ways, such as requiring the producer to pay for the cleanup of ocean plastics equal to the amount by weight that they failed to collect and recycle. Ocean Legacy specifically focuses on a deposit increase, as there is clear evidence of this method being effective in other jurisdictions. Alberta and Saskatchewan have a 10% deposit and are reaching 10% higher return rates than BC, while many jurisdictions in Europe have over 30-cent deposits, reaching over 90% return rates. The evidence is clear. The higher the refundable deposits, the higher the return rate. The Ocean Legacy Foundation's recommendations will help. Ensure beverage containers stay out of our environment. Reduce municipal taxes by reducing waste management services, landfill spaces, and litter cleanup. Reduce greenhouse gas production by recycling materials rather than creating new plastics. Provide an increase in funding for people and organizations who collect and return beverage containers to designated depots for the refund, and create up to 38 times more jobs than a curbside recycling system for beverage containers. So far, the Saanich Environmental Committee, the Mayor of Victoria, Lisa Helps, and the Sartlip and Esquimalt communities have sent letters of support for these recommendations to the Minister of Environment. I would like to request that the Council of Oak Bay also endorses these 5 recommendations from the Ocean Legacy Foundation's report by sending a letter of support to the Minister of Environment, as well as a motion to request to put the topic on the floor at the UBCM.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Leave the names behind. Is there anybody else who wishes to come forward and address council this evening? Anybody else just feeling tentative? No? Okay. Thank you very much. That concludes our public participation period. For those on council and the audience, there's a couple of items that were raised here. The question of the blue dot would come possibly potentially in the new business, and probably with some referral to staff for information if they wish to move forward. And the second piece around the plastics, I would think would be a resolution to UBCM should the council wish to move that forward. At this time, we are moving on to item number 4 in our agenda. And you don't all have to stay through the whole meeting. I appreciate there is a basketball game on, but you're welcome to stay as long as you wish. Item number 4, tree protection bylaw. We have a resubmission for reconsideration of refusal for a permit at 767 St. Patrick. Mr. Heideley, this is a returning item that came to the previous council, was set aside essentially till the new bylaw came in. There's a request now to consider it currently before the under the current bylaw again. So would you maybe just give a quick overview of this item?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. Oh, there we go. Let's try. Thank you, Your Worship, fellow council members. Just to give you a bit of context in regards to the type of tree we're dealing with, the tree is a Cedrus deodora, or commonly referred to as a cedar of Lebanon. It's a commonly planted ornamental tree. It's long-lived in its native homeland. It can live up to 1,000 years. Probably not that here. It is relatively drought tolerant and is a heavy shedder of needles, as many conifers are, but this one a little bit more so than most. To put, just to touch back on, apologize about that. Initially, the request came from Mrs. Hubbard back in last September 2018, and it was deferred with the understanding that the new bylaw would be completed, and there may be a mechanism there for consideration. The new bylaw is yet to be completed. However, the major recommendations have gone forward to commission for review, and soon to be coming on to you for review yourselves. So because we're not at a point where the new bylaw is complete, this is back for reconsideration under all of the old factors of the existing bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the applicant here tonight? Welcome. I'm going to assume that there's going to be probably some questions, but just we won't call you forward unless we need to. So back to the table. Is there any other staff input on this particular item? So it may just be worthwhile. There's a number of options that council can consider approving a tree. I think it's in this report here again today, but I just want to make sure all of council is familiar with the rules as they currently sit. There's nothing in there specifically for nuisance, but there is for some other specific key areas. Could you maybe just highlight those for council and for the audience?
Certainly, Your Worship. The one that would be closest to reflect some consideration for the request would be Section 612 in the present tree protection bylaw, which is a deleterious effect to the value of the property.
All right, over to council. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff. Is there any way that you could share what the current tree canopy coverage is with and without that tree on the property?
I haven't measured the exact percentages, but it would be an impact, an estimate would be about a 15% reduction at least of the canopy cover on that particular property. That would be excluding the actual building footprint.
Of course,
Councillor
and a possible estimate of the current canopy coverage in your professional opinion.
It would put it below the requested or ideal 35% that we're looking for in any new build for that particular zoning.
Councillor, you have more?
So one final question, if I may. And this, I don't know which staff this would be suitable to send to. Are we within our rights to ask, or, and if not, might the proponent be willing to volunteer to plant a new tree if we agree to remove this one? So the question, could we ask?
Yeah, I'll ask the applicant to come forward. I know there's been some discussion in the past. Would you mind coming forward again? Just if you can just state your name for the record, and if there's anything that you have offered or would be willing to offer in terms of dealing with replacement trees, if that's part of your plan or not.
Hi, Sally Hubbard, and the property is on St. Patrick, as was mentioned. Also, something that wasn't mentioned here is the tree roots. Since I was here at the meeting on September, are getting into my drainage tiles and had to be cut out when I had the perimeter drains cleaned. As I mentioned at that time, the needles are getting into the sump pumps, clogging that up, and then the property floods. Not every year, but quite often. Yes, indeed. I'd be more than happy to plant another tree. This tree, like most trees, it was planted small. I don't know how many years ago, 50, would you think? And of course, when it was planted, I don't think the person understood that it was going to grow to the size it is. And it's, it's 15 feet away from the front window. It's a huge, ominous, towering tree that just drops needles into the eaves troughs, onto the roof, into the doors, into the windows. And it's as been stated, it's just a very messy tree. And as I say, now it's encroaching on the perimeter drains, plugs my sump pumps. It's a costly tree to maintain, and it's not giving much back. And there are quite a few trees on that property. I don't know if you've been in the back, but there's about 12 fruit trees that are very, very mature in the back as well. Along the side, there are a couple of other trees that weren't mentioned. So this is, and also in the front, there is quite a large Japanese maple tree. So there are a number of trees on the property. It's not going to leave it bereft of foliage, that's for sure, if this tree is gone.
I mean, you're willing to work with the staff to come up with an appropriate tree and location on the property for replacement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Zelka? Okay. Councillor Green?
Through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Hiley, in the arborist memo, it mentions regular pruning. A regular pruning cycle can help to mitigate some of the sort of negative factors of the tree. Do you know if a regular pruning cycle has been maintained on this tree? Thank you.
Mr. Headley?
Through the Mayor, thanks, Councillor Green. I do know that Mrs. Hubbard has spent some money doing some pruning on the trees, on this particular tree. And as the arborist memo mentions, it has had some failures in windstorms too, which she has addressed.
Through you, Your Worship, to Mrs. Hubbard, could you tell me if you have had a regular pruning cycle done with the tree, or has it been periodic or sporadic? Thank you.
You'll have to come up to the front here and speak
Sorry.
to the microphone. I think you may not want to go too far from the microphone for a few minutes.
I did have it severely pruned, probably about, I think you would know in your notes there, Chris, about 6 years ago, was it? At the tune of just under $1,000. And it took a couple of hours at least, and 2 or 3 hours to do that. And there were huge limbs taken out. And at the time, there was supposed to be another branch removed, and it was not removed. And I don't know why the arborist, well, I do know why. It was starting to get too costly, and so he didn't remove one of the larger limbs that is now protruding over the roof and contributing to an extra mess. Last winter, a huge branch fell down out of the tree and was picked up by Oak Bay Rec. And that's about as much as I've done to it, because I don't want to put another $1,000 into trimming that tree, because I already spend about that much every 2 years at least cleaning drains, looking after floods, and everything else that this tree has caused me.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. And to Mr. Haile, through you, I don't know too much about this species. Could you tell me if you know if it's like a water-seeking species? So if it's dry conditions, does it try to move towards drainage systems? Is that part of its growth habit?
Mr. Heidley?
Through the Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Most plants would be opportunistic in the sense that where there would be a water source, they would seek it. This particular tree does have high drought tolerance, and one of the things that it does do, because of its very pyramidal habit and heavy branch structure, it casts a lot of shade on the soil, hence looking after itself and conserving water through evaporation. It's one of the reasons it does so well.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So, Mr. Heidley, if you could just clarify that the new tree protection bylaw that will be coming forward to council that has been through commission, it wouldn't, just for clarification for the other councillors sitting around the table, it would not actually have anything in there that would help us with this decision that would enable the arborist to actually go ahead and give a permit to remove this tree without coming through council. Is that correct?
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. That is correct.
In the hopes of avoiding having to do this, is that the... Well, I need to have a discussion and or motion on the table to talk to if Councillor
I think that, I mean, through you, Chair, this is a very tough position to be put in when you're on council, where we are. For me, I'm in the business to protect trees, truly. So when we have to really weigh the pros and cons when something like this comes to council, I totally understand where you're coming from. I've seen that tree. It would be a very hard tree to deal with on a property. It pains me to have to admit that I would have a tree taken down, but I think that in this particular case that this tree is probably not in the best position for this house, and I'm not sure if any amount of pruning could actually save what's happening to the house, to the perimeter drains, etc. So I'm inclined, and I'll listen to some of the comments from my fellow councillors, but I'm inclined to allow the permit to go ahead and approve the permit for the removal, but I would appreciate hearing what my other councillors have to say.
Do you mind just making a motion and perhaps including
Sure.
in that, also conditional upon the offer of the applicant to plant a replacement tree?
Okay, so I will make a motion that would give permission to remove the tree in question from 757-767 St. Patrick Street under the condition that another tree would be used to replace it or planted to replace it.
Could that also include in concert with the parks staff, in terms of the choice of the tree and those sorts of things?
Yes, with the choice of the tree being through the park staff so that they don't run into the same issue.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is that clear enough? Looking to. Okay. All right. So we have a motion on the table. Councillors wish to speak to it. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would not support this motion. The reason being, I fear that, and though I totally understand what Councillor Braithwaite has said here, and I agree wholeheartedly, I have concerns about the precedent that it sets. We are probably looking at a situation where our urban trees are going to be under additional stress. They are going to be seeking water by getting into our perimeter drains. They are going to be under stress and ditching branches and just generally being less healthy than they have in the past. I know that a selection of trees on my property are into my perimeter drains on a consistent basis, and given the average age of the perimeter drains on most of the houses in Oak Bay, that's just going to be a consistent issue. So I fear that if the basis for approving this is on the basis of that trees become progressively more difficult to maintain when they're under stress from water and heat, and that they have the potential to cause impact to perimeter drains, I think you're going to find a really large percentage of tree roots into perimeter drains on properties all across Oak Bay. So it does open us up to having to review those types of projects on a regular basis. So I would just caution against that. And so for that reason, although I'm completely empathetic and completely understanding that there is a significant maintenance burden with the tree, and I want to acknowledge that, we as a council have to consider how it might affect other people wanting to deal with similar trees that are causing an issue on their property. So,
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you so much, Chair. Through you, I don't believe this sets a precedent. I hear the comments from my fellow councillor, and I was pleased to hear that with the upcoming bylaw that there actually won't be a provision for this. So if there was a future situation coming forward, we would still have to deal with it at this table. So I take solace in that. I do. I have to agree, however, that like most folks in Oak Bay, I'm sure the tillering or routering, whatever you could have a hard time mentioning that word. The routering businesses are no doubt making lots of money from our rather mature trees. No doubt on my properties as well. I've had to remove roots from the various pipes to try and maintain the infrastructure on my property. So I don't, not for that reason, but simply for the reason that this particular tree is one that I also have had some experience with, and I wouldn't say is particularly suitable for placement anywhere near a house. So that lends me to support the motion as stated. I'm very pleased to hear that the proponent is willing to work with staff on a suitable replacement of tree to get the coverage, I presume, back up to at least 35% or whatever our tree protection bylaw will be, the aspiration is for. So under those circumstances, I'm fine to support the motion as is. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Green.
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Braithwaite's motion. I appreciate the hardship that you're facing at this point on a personal level. However, I share Councillor Appleton's view that we are very concerned about the future of tree health in Oak Bay and in many other places. In fact, not long ago, Mr. Haile and I had a conversation about the loss and decline of our western cedar ecosystem on Vancouver Island and in British Columbia. So I think maybe a regular pruning cycle could be something that you could examine. I realize it's costly, but we have trees and bushes and hedges on our property that we prune each year. It does cost money, but it maintains them and maintains their health and as well. So I will not support this motion. I think everyone in Oak Bay values trees. I think that we need to do whatever we can to preserve them, and I hope that you can find a way to mitigate some of the impacts by working with staff at the municipality. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Not seeing any. All right, we'll call the question. All those in, so the motion is to allow the permit to go forward. All those in favor? Opposed? Two opposed? I will. Yep. Yes, Councillor Appleton, Councillor Green opposed. So the motion passes. Thank you very much. I'll just, yeah, that's it. So you've got enough information, Mr. Hidley? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, item number 5, Oak Bay Business Improvement Association request for hydro box graphic wrap installation. No, you're not coming up for that. Is Ms. Jensen, are you speaking to this? Mr. Jones? Should I just invite Ms. Leary up to the...
Your Worship, from staff's perspective, this is a fairly just kind of technical issue that we need to have approval of council. We're fully supportive of this wrapping going forward and would recommend that council approve it.
All right, thank you very much. And I do appreciate you, the BIA and the Heritage working so closely together on this project to bring it forward. Councillor Braithwaite and Councillor Green.
I'll move that the permission be granted to the Oak Bay Business Improvement Association to install Oak Bay Archives image 2010-010114 as a graphic wrap installation on a BC Hydro box on the 2200 block of Oak Bay Avenue.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Oh, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just and I have no problem with this at all. But I just had a quick question of staff. Just under is this, and I don't mean to sound critical. Is this the sort of thing that needs to come before council? And what would there be a way of streamlining this for you so that it didn't have to come to council?
Mr. Jones.
Your Worship, I think that's a really good question, and we will work on that because we would hope it wouldn't. We wouldn't want to put the wrong picture on something, but I think we could come up with some arrangements to make sure it's not.
Thank you very much. All right, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. I did notice that it was BC Hydro that wanted it confirmed by District of Oak Bay, but it would be helpful if we actually had the image. I appreciated the description of the image, so I could sort of have an idea. It seems to be okay. I would have loved to have seen it, but I guess I'll see it once it's up on the electrical box. Thank you.
I can ask. Councillor Green.
Oh, I just wondered through you to Mr. Jones, is BC Hydro sharing any of the cost for this or helping us out or helping out the BIA? No?
Getting a head shake in the audience. The answer is no.
Okay.
Your Worship, we'd be happy though to share what the image looks like.
Thank you.
I believe it's of Clive Drive way back in the day. Is that correct? Yes. No, it's a heritage photo. All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Item number 6, we have a statement of financial information report. This comes, is... Thank you. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for that.
Is Ms. Carter? Oh, sure. Ms. Carter's here. If Ms. Carter, if you can just give a quick overview of Sophie and why it's in front of us tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. So each year we're required by the Financial Information Act to provide this information in this particular format to the province. It also needs to be approved by not only the financial officer for the municipality, but also by council. And so each year by June 30th, we submit this information to the province.
Okay, thank you very much. There's new information here in the sense that we declare all of the contracts and the salaries over 75,000, and the financials are a restatement of existing financial statements. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Worship. It's all consistent with what was brought before you recently in the audited financial statements.
Very good. Are there questions of Council, Ms. Carter? Oh, Councillor Patterson?
I just have a couple of minor comments on the report. Thank you, Ms. Carter. For clarity in this world of the website and Google that we live in, I'm just wondering if we would consider perhaps putting this as a draft until it's approved by council, minor technicality, and also if we could move the approval by the financial officer to the beginning of the report rather than the end. It is in many reports I've seen, the financial officer's approval is right at the beginning, and it just gives the introduction into the statements and that the financial officer has reviewed them all. And the last comment is just if we would consider putting an index with it for future reports. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We take those under advisement and consideration. I just want to point out as well, there was one typo in here as well that was being corrected of the name of the former CAO. So Councillor Zalga, you had a...
Thank you, Chair. I was also going to point out the spelling. Sounds like that'll get taken care of in housekeeping, I presume, before the signatures go on.
Ms. Jensen? Ms. Carter?
Through Your Worship, that's correct. It has already been corrected, unfortunately, not in time prior to it being posted.
Wonderful. I've got a couple of other questions, if I may. What I love about this report every year is that it's, while the financial statements present things in a thing that makes accountants happy, this presents information, essentially the same information, but in a way that actually I can with my limited understanding of the finances, I can actually try and tie this now into actual programs that we're running. And I wanted to ask in particular about the MTerra environmental cost. It's approximately $500,000. Let's see if I can find the page it's on. It's on, is there a page number? Oh, there's no page number. Page 11, apparently. MTerra Environmental for $505,000 and $90.29. I just want to confirm, is that for our green bin program?
Ms. Carter?
Through Your Worship, yes, it is. There are a few different things that we pay to MTerra, and we have a contract with them. It also includes tipping fees and things like that.
So it's the green bin plus some other tipping fees, or is it all related to the green bin program? I just wanted to know whether this is the total cost of our green bin program, since I couldn't find that in the financial statements.
Yes, through Your Worship, that is correct.
And are there any other charges related to specifically to the green bin program that may or may not be captured on this document, please?
Ms. Carter?
Through Your Worship, everything that we've paid to MTerra is included in this document.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that. That's very helpful to see as a way of as we move forward. I presume contracts will come forward for us to review these various sort of programs and how much they cost. And if I understand correctly or remember correctly, this is the program that ships all of our recycled goods over to the mainland for them to be processed over there. Is that my understanding correct?
Ms. Carter, do you want
Your
me to
Worship,
answer that, you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that would be a question for the Director of Engineering Services, who isn't here this evening.
That's fine. I'll ask that maybe an email be sent around if it's appropriate from staff to just remind us where our green bin materials actually go. I don't know whether actually.
I believe at this point they are still being shipped across to the mainland, and there is currently a part of a process with the through the CRD seeking expressions of interest for different means of composting or other ridding of compostable materials, but it's still in early stages.
I definitely look forward to an opportunity to keep our green bin material on island and maybe even in our backyards, and having a way to delete this $500,000 from our budget, maybe one day, and also delete the cost that every city, every resident has to pay to contribute to this cost, which is something that I recall when it first came up years ago, I objected to, since I just have a hard time paying for my green stuff to be sent across across the water. The last question I have is, I see that Deb has signed on behalf of our CAO, and I just wanted to confirm, does this bind Deb or does this bind Lou as a reviewer of the contents, please?
I will ask Ms. Carter or Ms. Varela to answer that question.
I'll answer that, Your Worship. Thank you. So it's totally appropriate for a corporate officer to sign my stead when I'm not physically in the office, and the burden still lies with myself and the Director of Finance.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Need a motion then to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Item number 7 on our agenda, graphics. This is Council Strategic Priorities and Goals. Proposed mission and value statements proposed as a result of our discussions at our strategic planning process. Ms. Varela, do you want to give a quick summary of this?
Thank you, Your Worship. So these images should look very familiar to Council, as we have been using them throughout our strategic planning process for 2019. What we wanted to do is actually get formal endorsement of these. These will be included in the annual report, the pending corporate strategic plan, and other documents as necessary. The first visual you see, which is the 5 circles, is probably the most refined visual, but I do like the colored flow chart just because it starts to layer in the categories beneath those high-level strategic priorities. And as we discussed, the mission statement we took right out of the community charter, and the vision statement we took right out of the OCP. So we're hoping Council will see fit to endorse these tonight.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or of staff? Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very quickly on the and thank you to staff for putting this forward. Just in the terms of the flow chart for strategic priorities and corporate goals, now, as we were working with this document, I recall that sort of in the bottom row, there's a number of different bullets, and some of them are bulleted differently. Like there's a different style of bullet, and I remember that it represents where those bullets are coming from, whether or not they're coming from the OCP or whether they're coming from staff recommendations or through discussion through the process. And I see that the style's been retained, but I was just wondering whether the little disclaimer on what those represent was going to be included, or whether or not we were just going to square all the bullets and use them all the same.
As it sits right now, I think that's just a housekeeping error that we lost our little blurb or explanatory blurb at the bottom. So my apologies, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. So for approving this, it'll be approved with the blurb reattached. Okay, good to know. Councillor Green, do you have a no? Please.
I'll move approval of the report as presented with the inclusion of the disclaimer explaining the bullets.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? Thank you very much. We have the item number 8, resolution of support. This is a letter from City of Victoria coming to us, asking us to write a letter. Again, this would normally be something I would suspect would be appropriate for a UBCM motion more than a council writing letters to the province. That's generally our model for the pieces. However, there is we certainly have that ability to do that as well. So this has come to us. We need a motion to receive it no matter what. But if there's any other, maybe we'll take that motion on the table and we'll have a discussion too. If there's any other action items.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded. I'll leave this on the table and we'll just have a discussion to that motion. But you can speak to any other aspects, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate your indulgence here. I can speak somewhat to this in my capacity as Library Board Trustee for Oak Bay to bring, and I'm going to update Council a little bit later about the meeting, but what I can tell Council is that the BC Public Library Partners, which includes the BC Library Trust Association, the BC Library Association, and the Association of BC Public Library Directors are collectively working on an advocacy initiative around this topic, the funding for public libraries. Our representative from the GVPL, there are two of them who sit on the BC Library organization, have plugged into that process. They just joined the board within the last couple of weeks, but have informed us that they are preparing, for want of a better word, standardized language to respond to this issue. They do want to see it end up at UBCM and would like to see individual municipal councils support it, but see some value in having a unified message in how that's being presented. So I am staying in touch with the BCLTA folks about what that's going to look like. I'm hopeful that I will get that information within the next couple of weeks, and my intent would be to bring forward a motion to draft a letter with language that mirrors our partner organizations in support of both restoring the funding and moving something forward to UBCM. So just for council's knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Is there part of that to look at doing something for UBCM as well? The cutoff, I'm just noting, is at the end of this month. So for UBCM motion to go to UBCM. So is there a body that's putting that motion forward to UBCM that you know of?
As far, I'm not sure what their procedure is at this stage of the game. It's a reasonable question, and that's well remarked that it is coming up fairly quickly here. Their intent, I think, was to have something in fairly short order to clarify how they were going to respond to the UBCM deadline. So I would be hopeful that we would receive that, and I did let them know, our representatives, that we did need to get it through council this month for that purpose. So I would sort of ask your indulgence while I wait for a little bit of clarification, but hopefully we would bring something forward to the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. You may want to just make to follow our procedures here, make a notice of motion under new business that you may bring forward such a motion at the next council meeting. And that way, if it comes, we're all prepared for it, and we don't have to kind of jump through hoops procedurally to deal with that. So I'll try and remind you at the time to do it. So then we're just really dealing here with the motion to receive at this point. Any other discussion of that? Councillor Patterson?
Yes, just thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering perhaps if Councillor Appleton has any magnitude of what the gap is in underfunding now, or what would we be looking for? Is there like a cost or percentage estimate that's placed on it? Do you know?
Councillor Appleton?
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Patterson. Thanks for the question. The issue is that the funding that is provided by the provincial government to libraries overall has essentially been static since 2010. So it's not so much a gap thing as it's not actually keeping up with a year-over-year increase or an inflationary increase. It's essentially remained a static number since 2010. So the issue is that, of course, our library system has many technological improvements. It is an entirely different library system essentially than it was 10 years ago, which has a lot of associated costs. And at this stage of the game, obviously the implication for the municipalities that support the GVPL, as we've seen through the budgeting process this time, is that then it increases the individual demand on the municipalities that participate in the library boards. So the interest is very much to have that funding keep up with year-over-year increases and be reflective of the true cost of delivering essentially a modernized library system.
Thank you. Yeah, I will note that is a significantly decreased percentage over the last 15 years or so of the budget. It used to be, I think, around 20% of the library budget. It's down to more like 10% now. It's shrunk quite a lot. Those numbers aren't quite right, but something in that neighborhood. Any other discussion? Yeah, Councillor Green.
Just a question for you and for Councillor Appleton. Is there any reason why we couldn't do both in terms of a resolution and also write a letter to UBCM, or at least write a letter to UBCM supporting a resolution to increase funding?
I think the process that we're considering here would be a notice of motion, that'll go under new business, motion to UBCM, if one isn't already generated by another entity, and then we'll have the question of the letter come back at that time at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor to receive, opposed, none opposed, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Appleton, for your clarification on that. We have item number 9, which is Licensed Inspectors and Bylaw Officers Association of British Columbia Local Government Dangerous Dog Appeal. This is a new one for me after I've seen. Is there anybody on staff who wishes to speak to this item? Nobody. Mr. Jones?
Your Worship, I will attempt to. I think this is an important thing for municipalities to work collaboratively with others to understand what a dangerous dog might be, and because it does vary from place to place. So if there was some type of a provincial standard, I think that would be helpful. It'd certainly be helpful to us. So I think a contribution to this would be money well spent.
Thank you. So the motion requested here is to approve a grant of $500.
Yes, Your Worship.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Moved and seconded. It seems like a small amount considering the $50,000-ish payouts that it's taking to go to court to settle these issues one by one. Any further discussion? Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship, and maybe just call on the Director of Corporate Services to just elaborate a little bit further. I'm just curious how typical this type of arrangement is in terms of addressing a legal challenge that has implications for multiple local governments. How are these things typically addressed, if not by an external body sort of doing it on their own recognizance?
So, Your Worship, that's a really good question, and I think each local government is different. We have 2 issues that are in front of us now as staff, and they do take considerable time. We hope to deal with those before they get to the courts. We don't know if they will, but if there were better standards, that would be very helpful to us.
Councillor Zelka?
Thank you very much, Chair. I very much appreciate this association moving forward on this issue. I do note in 2016 UBCM a motion was passed to also try and move forward on this issue having to do with legal interpretation that didn't seem to make sense. I was out for a walk in my neighborhood. I won't specify the street or the address, but I was very surprised to see posted right on the front yard, a sign describing how a dangerous dog lived here with an Oak Bay. So we obviously have procedures within our district to deal with this. I can imagine it's a difficult situation, and if there's any way that we can do to ease the burden on our staff for dealing with these situations, especially in this day and age as we have fewer children and more pets. I very much appreciate trying to simplify this situation that I hope doesn't become more common, but I fear it will. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? None opposed. Oak Bay Advisory Design Panel minutes. Item number 10.
Move approval of the minutes for
Move
information.
receipt.
Or move receipt of the minutes for information.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Same motion to receive for Advisory Planning Commission minutes of May 7th.
Motion to receive for information.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Correspondence upcoming. Nothing. New business and reports from other committees. So new business. I will turn to Mr. Appleton first, since I believe you're now going to make a notice of motion that you're...
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would like to make a notice of motion for council to prepare correspondence to the provincial government requesting additional funding be provided for the Greater Victoria Public Library System, and also to forward the recommendation to the next meeting of the Union of BC Municipalities.
Second.
No, it's just a notice. We don't need a seconder. Yep. Thank you for that. So that's on the record. Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite, let's go around the table here. If there's any new business.
Actually, I just want to make a notice of motion that I might be bringing forward as well. I had wanted to do this last year, but unfortunately I wasn't able to attend UBCM. And that's a motion to take to UBCM in regards to changing the term of office from 4 years back to 3 years. I think there's a lot of, I'm looking into the numbers right now of how much it cost municipalities that had to have by-elections because the term was extended to 4 years. And I'd like to get that data together and then bring the motion to council at the next council meeting.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Certainly if you want to, it has to be at the next council meeting. So any other new business? Oh, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't realize there was more.
I feel like I'm dominating the conversation here tonight. I would like to make a notice of motion for council to officially consider adoption of the Blue Dot Initiative, supported as necessary by any materials that staff sees fit to provide in a formal sense. So I will take some direction from staff as to whether or not that would have to come to committee of the whole first, or in what format that would come forward. So, but I would like council the motion. The focus of the motion would be for council to officially consider adoption of the Blue Dot Initiative.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I guess we might as well do the other one as well. I would like some help to get a notice of motion to endorse the 5 recommendations from the Oceans Legacy. Actually, the one to raise deposits, I think, is the one that we really should be concentrating on. So maybe a notice of motion to take to UBCM to raise the deposits on refundable products, plastic products.
If that were to come, it would have to come next week or 2 weeks from now if it was to get to UBCM on time. Okay, thank you. Does not bind anybody to do these things, but it's good to have it on the table here if we want to have it. Councillor Zalka, you had something under new business?
If we're done with notice of motions, I have a report, verbal reports.
Not quite done with notices of motions. I may be bringing also sort of a possible notice of motion here. And this just is reflective of, we've had a substantial number of people concerned about, quite a few people have crossed the threshold this year from the, where they don't get the homeowner grants anymore as their home values have gone up. Now the median value of our homes has gone up. So I'm going to be looking at some possible options of ways that we might bring forward to UBCM to look at considering local average land values as part of the calculations. So. That's it. So now we have report on the Capital Regional District. Oh, sorry, Ms. Varela.
Sorry, Your Worship. The public hearing, June 24th.
Oh, thank you very much for that. I even have it on my notes, and I didn't do that. So we enter new business. I just need a motion to set the date of the. There was a public hearing scheduled for today at 6 o'clock, and the notice didn't get put in the papers as it was supposed to, so we didn't meet our legislative requirement. So we're going to repost that. The date would be June 24th at 6:30 p.m.
I'll make the motion for a public.
Here, do I want the actual?
Yeah, can I have the actual?
Pulling it up. The motion would be that a public hearing be held to consider bylaw 3531.104 on June 24th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. at the Council Chambers, Oak Bay Municipal Hall.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Councillor Appleton, you had a question?
Just note that you just said 6:30.
6:30.
Oh, 6. Okay, so it's not 6 o'clock as it was the previous time.
It is now at 6:30. Yeah. It's anticipated to be a reasonably short one, and we're trying to make it available for all the councillors to get here. So, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? Thank you very much. And now, I really don't have anything for Capital Regional District now. Other verbal reports, and Councillor Zalka, I'm happy to start with you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm now ready to do my verbal reports. I'm used to being last. This is crazy. I wanted to report out that on Saturday, the Oak Bay Emergency Program sponsored a mini training camp at University of Victoria. It was for the Moke Bay Emergency Program, although half the people there were from all the other emergency programs, which was fabulous to see. We had a wonderful presentation on modernization of the Emergency Support Services program from EMBC. A good presentation on leadership in 60 minutes. A wonderful talk about scribing for incident commanders in particular. When the proverbial stuff is hitting the fan, it's useful to have someone writing things down. It's amazing. And then the care of evacuees and volunteers, how important that was. Anyways, it was an excellent presentation and good feedback from all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patterson, anything to update? Councillor Green?
Oh, just that I attended the tourism committee meeting last week. Enjoyed participating in the tea party, and I understand you won the teacup race.
I should have brought my award, yes.
And I attended the advisory design panel meeting this last week. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Braithwaite?
Thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Tea Party as well. I just want to thank the municipal workers. I don't think that the Tea Party could be put on without the help from not only the municipal Parks and Rec or public works, but also our fire department and our police department, and they help keep everything safe and tidy, and it's a great way to showcase Oak Bay, and so I think we should be very thankful to our municipal workers. So if you could pass that along, that would be wonderful. And also I do get to run the Baron of Beef stand, and I want to thank the mayor for coming and volunteering at that. That was really great. It was wonderful for people to see him there volunteering as well. And then on the weekend, we had Garage Millennium. And I think that it's important to thank Cassie Kangas, one of our wonderful volunteers within Oak Bay, for her organization. And then also, we had Councillor Appleton riding his bike for 4 hours to help raise money and awareness for the Ride Don't Hide event, which is coming up on June 23rd. I hope I didn't steal your thunder, but he was out there riding his bike for 4 hours. I'm not sure how much money he raised, but there was good cookies there. That's all I'm going to say. And don't forget there's a market on this Wednesday.
Thank you. Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship. I attended the last Greater Victoria Library Board meeting was on May 28th. I'm pleased to announce it did come out in the middle of last month, but it had not actually been formally announced at the meeting yet. So I'm pleased to be able to announce that the GVPL was the recipient of the John Cotton Dana Award, which is an international award for essentially promotional materials associated with libraries. So it's presented by the American Library Association, and I am new to my role as trustee, but I am made to understand that this is an extremely prestigious award, and it's for the Change Your Mind campaign. So those of you who have been to libraries and have seen the happy little brain that's on the floor and on the promotional materials, they won for that award, and it is a great campaign supported by a really cool website and all those things. And one really important thing that I learned was that all of those materials, the whole campaign and all of the materials, including all the graphics and everything associated with it, was all done in-house by in-house staff. So there were no contractors. It wasn't contracted out to anybody. It was a team of 3 keen staff people inside the GVPL that did all of that. So they are being flown down. The foundation provides funds for them to travel to Washington, D.C. to accept the award. So should be very, very proud of the work that the GVPL is doing, and now internationally recognized. So very pleased to report back on that.
Thank you very much. No other comments. I just, the only other thing when I completed my rather long Institute of Corporate Directors training for the police board training. So they do a 5-day, 9-hour-a-day course that they put on for training. And I have to say, I know it's not available yet. If that course or something like it is available for some point for counselors, it would be very worth doing. It was exceptionally well put together. The details on everything from risk management and planning to reading financial statements to doing good strategic planning, and all aspects of being a good director in general, and that's specific to police boards, but it was very well done. So I'm seeing what's possible, and hopefully maybe we can get something like that at UBCM in future years, because I think it'd be really valuable for people who want to go to it. That's it. Those are all my comments. And I just thank Councillor Braithwaite for raising all the other bits, the bike to work weekend things. No, it's great. That's exactly what it's here for. I speak too much as it is. We're on to item number 13, resolution for development variance permit of 1054 Falkland Road. We need a motion. I think the process here is the motion to approve and then second, and then we open it up for discussion. Councillor Green?
I'll move that the Director of Building and Planning be authorized to issue development variance permit DVP 00092 with respect to 2725 Lincoln Road.
No, sorry, 0088.
Oh, sorry. Oh.
The other one.
Wrong one.
Yeah, Councillor Patterson, why don't you just go ahead and read it?
Oh, you go ahead.
I'll
Sorry.
move that the Director of Building and Planning be authorized to issue development variance permit DVP 00088 with respect to 1054 Falkland Road as appended to the Council agenda of June 10th, 2019.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Is there any input from the public on this item? I'm not seeing anybody here. Is there any discussion, comments from council? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? Next, we have Councillor. Oh, Councillor.
If I may, I just wanted to ask, is notification part of this? I wasn't quite sure whether that was part of the motion.
No, this is approval. So
Approval.
It went to committee of the whole. It goes out to notification, and then it comes here for approval. Item number, Councillor Green, do you want to do this again?
That the Director of Building and Planning be authorized to issue development variance permit DVP 00092 with respect to 2725 Lincoln Road as appended to the Council agenda of June 10th, 2019.
Second.
Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak to this item? Not seeing anybody. Bring it back to this table. Is there any discussion? All right, we have the motion on the table. All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you very much. We have a previous notice of motion, now a motion from Councillor Green on public community meetings. So I will hand the floor to you if you wish to make the motion. You don't have to read the whereases, just the motion, and we can talk to it.
That the District of Oak Bay Municipal Council is committed to improving public communication and citizen engagement and recognizes the importance of timely, ongoing, and consistent public input to inform Council on a variety of community interests, and that the District of Oak Bay Municipal Council commissioned and received a community engagement report in 2018. Therefore, I won't read all of it, sorry. Therefore, be it resolved that the Oak Bay Municipal Council will host one meeting. And this would, I think the wording is a little confusing, that this would be 3 meetings in total, 1 meeting in each of the North, Central, and South Oak Bay neighborhoods in 2019. The purpose of these meetings will be to engage with residents on issues of local interest. However, no commitments, undertakings, or decisions will be made by council members.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and there's a staff report here as well, just laying out some of the request for clarification, essentially, of how council wants to go forward if we move forward with this. But procedurally, is the best way of dealing with this to approve the motion and then just give some guidance to staff in terms of some of the other pieces, or would you like that clarification included prior to the vote on this? Ms. Varela?
It might be useful prior to the vote, Your Worship.
Okay, that seems reasonable. Councillor Green, the floor is still yours. If you want to do any other motivation to this, then we can get to a discussion.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank staff very much for their support and guidance in editing the resolution and making sure that the wording was correct, as well as providing a cautionary note, I think I would describe it as, from our CAO regarding these meetings. I have for many years felt that neighborhood or community meetings are important to making good decisions in local government, and I think nothing beats face-to-face communication with residents and our communities. So that is the reason I brought this forward. I would hope that these meetings would continue after 2019, but we decided at this point in time, after conversing with the CAO, that we would do 3 this fall and then evaluate their usefulness. And if people were supportive and residents' feedback was positive, then we would go further and perhaps do them for the duration of the term. I also appreciate comments from our mayor about a couple of considerations around this idea, but I did some homework in the meantime before the resolution tonight. I've talked to colleagues at the City of Victoria and North Saanich. They hold similar meetings, have been doing so for many years. And I, in fact, received a preamble statement that North Saanich uses before they commence each of these meetings. And I provided copies to our mayor and to corporate services and to our CAO. These community meetings would have no agenda, and there would be an opening preamble, as I've mentioned. And these meetings, their purpose would be for updating information. All councillors would have the ability to attend and participate. It is not required, but they would attend, hopefully, out of interest. No council business would be advanced at these meetings. There would be no decisions, undertakings, or commitments made at these meetings. But it is felt that council members are capable of policing themselves. And if the CAO and or her designate is in attendance, I'm sure they would keep us on the straight and narrow. In my view, these community meetings are a number of things. They build community. They're designed to provide updates on major initiatives. They're opportunities for information sharing, especially for residents. They enhance proactive community engagement by learning what matters to residents and communities. And finally, they are a way of pulse checking. So checking the pulse of the community. I frankly don't see how any council member can really do their job well without understanding and knowing what issues matter and what concerns matter to our residents. And again, face-to-face meetings can be very effective. So that's my rationale for bringing the motion forward. And I know that members of this council and the previous council talked about having meetings. I know Councillor Braithwaite is a great advocate for what is sometimes referred to as the town hall meeting format. But these are designed to be smaller and more direct. And because they will be held in each of the 3 areas of Oak Bay, all residents in all of Oak Bay then will have the opportunity to attend. And I'm willing to do whatever I can to help organize them and facilitate them, and would support staff in those efforts. I think the bottom line is, as I explained to our CAO last week on the phone, I don't want this to be burdensome for staff, nor create an additional workload. And having experienced these meetings in another municipality, I know how successful they can be, and that would be my hope, that we would achieve success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Yeah, I tried all last term to get meetings like this, so I'm very supportive of this motion. I think the last time we had a town hall meeting was when former Mayor Chris Costin was mayor, and that was very well attended, and I think should have been continued on. So I'm very happy to support this, and will help to organize in any way that I can. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Patterson. And then Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Mayor. I also applaud Councillor Green for bringing this forward. I am very pleased. I also like the recommendation of the informal process to this. And, you know, having had a mini version of it, I think, this year already, when our mayor was invited to speak with residents in North Henderson just a short while ago, and I felt that meeting was very well received by people in the community. The mayor seemed quite comfortable and was able to relay to the residents some of the work that has been done by council that we don't necessarily get a chance to condense into bite-sized pieces for the community. And I think it was really well received, well appreciated. So, you know, it's a good indication that if we plan this process, that it can be managed well and can be of benefit to the community.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very much in support of moving forward with something like a town hall or something that is in that it achieves the objectives put forward. I have a concern with the use of the word meeting, because meeting is a very legal specific word, and the staff report suggests that we can't have a quorum if we're calling it a meeting. So I would like to have some clarification at the end of my sort of statement, ideally from staff, as to how we're going to sort of handle this with respect to our procedures bylaw, with respect to the community charter, and with respect to the desire to refer to it as, say, a meeting, as opposed to, say, what maybe my preference would be is to call it a town hall. In the public's mind, there's an obvious difference between a town hall and a meeting. But the way this motion has been worded, I'm not quite sure what the difference is in terms of how we're going to stay within the purview and the ambit of the law, how we're going to keep it flexible and open and provide a two-way conversation, and yet, if it's a meeting, we're within the Community Charter and the Local Government Act, which means we're restricted on what we can and cannot do. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how staff will help us resolve this issue as we maintain our desire to be legal and above the law. I definitely want to move forward with as many town halls as possible. If it means renaming this to something less governmental and more open to informality, I would definitely be open to that.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll go back to Councillor Green. I do believe the wording doesn't really matter in the sense that if we're getting together, and I see staff kind of commiserating here quickly, then I'll get to Councillor Green. Ms. Varela?
Your Worship, so there is a certain amount of debate over is it a meeting or is it not a meeting? If council is wanting to go down this road, staff has provided a recommendation not in support of a meeting versus a gathering, and if you're choosing to make it a gathering, the resolution should reflect that. Right now it does use the word meeting. The Ombudsperson's best practices guide does lay out the idea of if there's quorum, is there a minute, is there a chair, is it regularly scheduled? Councillor Green is absolutely correct in that a lot of these are carried on around the region. There's still shifting practices, as people will remember. It wasn't that long ago strategic planning was done in closed meetings. We've now shifted away from that practice. But again, if you decided to do it as a gathering rather than a committee of the whole, staff has provided an alternative recommendation to that. But if you choose gathering, the wording in the motion should reflect that, and meeting should be replaced with gathering.
Councillor Green, you wanted to add something?
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate the comments of our staff and also Councillor Zelka. In speaking with council colleagues in North Saanich and in the City of Victoria, they use the word meeting. And they've never run into an issue around the quorum issue, because at the very beginning of the City of Victoria meetings, they state these are not decision-making meetings. In North Saanich, there's a preamble that's quite wordy. I won't go into it, but it basically says these meetings are informal gatherings, they do use that word, where the intent is to share with you some of the current initiatives in the municipality and to encourage public awareness and discussion. These meetings, however, are not formal council meetings, which means that council does not take minutes and no decisions are made by council in or coming out of these meetings. So it's very clear. They're advertised, we could call them gatherings. I would be worried that people might think we're sitting in small circles and, doing something other than talking. But, they are community meetings, and they're referred that way. Also, Central Saanich, Sydney do similar meetings. Saanich they call them meetings, I believe. And through you to Ms. Hopkins, having come from Saanich, did they use the word meeting? Do you recall? Or it's an unfair question, I haven't prepared you, but do you remember what Saanich did in that case?
Ms. Hopkins?
Through you, Chair, Saanich didn't have, they have many community associations, and council didn't attend en masse to those. They may, if they had an interest or something to share, but we didn't organize meetings that council went to into the community that was similar to this format.
Thank you. So perhaps Saanich doesn't do meetings like this. I think they are very common in small municipalities because it's an effective tool for reaching residents who can't attend regular meetings, committee of the whole meetings and so on in chambers. I think it's also a learning experience to take meetings off-site and to sort of sit in someone else's shoes, in someone else's neighborhood when having these meetings. However, I have researched this as much as I can. I went over the guidelines that our CAO references, which is produced by the Ombudsman on open meetings. But to me, the emphasis in the guidelines there was more on the use of in-camera versus open meetings. And there was a concern expressed some years ago in the province that a number of municipalities were holding too many in-camera meetings. So I think these guidelines for best practices are geared strongly towards the use and purpose of in-camera. So I'm really talking about what I would have called neighborhood meetings. I can't call them that, so then I went to community. Can we call them neighborhood meetings? I think the mayor has a point. I don't think it matters what we call them, but it does matter that we hold them. That would be my... And there is nothing, to be honest, nothing to be fearful of. Some of the best experiences I've had have been at neighborhood meetings or community meetings with residents. We managed to get one in 2012 in Oak Bay, and it was well received. And that was the last time. And as Councillor Braithwaite points out, the last official town hall meeting hosted by the municipality was in 2010, the year that we moved here, and I do remember that. These can be very productive. So if there are doubting Thomases at the council table or among staff or in the audience, I think we should give it a try and then evaluate them at the end of the year and see how we felt about them and include the residents in that evaluation. But I believe they're a very good way of checking in with our community.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I'm going to throw my 2 cents in on this one a little bit too. I think the initiative is great. It'll be well received by the community. I think we have, as you say, nothing to fear from community connecting to the community. I don't think that's anybody's concern. I think the question here is really procedurally what's the best way of managing these. I personally would tend to lean on the side of caution and call them meetings. We can have an agenda of open discussion. We can have that, but we can at least then advertise it so the whole community knows that it can happen. But I fear the only downside of that is we don't have people showing up, then we don't have quorum, right? So if we have a meeting that says it's like a special committee of the whole meeting that just have a conversation with councillors or something, then that becomes an issue where if there's only 3 people can make it, then it becomes a non-quorum issue. But I think the other flip side of that exists as well. If we say these are just going to be casual conversations and 4 people show up and suddenly there's a conversation that goes and people want to ask and there's certainly a dialogue, then you're getting to a decision-making process. And I think I'd rather err on the side of the slight formality. We don't have to run it formally, but I think keeping the structure within that framework would give me more comfort personally. But I'll leave that out there for the council to talk to. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. If there is a desire amongst the majority to keep referring to this as a meeting, I'm fine with that, to sort of muddle through as best we can and try and be in alignment with our procedures bylaw. I imagine the procedures bylaw of these other local authorities would be different than ours, so potentially that might account for differences. But I do know that our procedures bylaw always allows us through Robert's Rules of Order, if necessary, to suspend the rules. If we choose to do that, which gives us entire flexibility to do whatever we wish at the meeting, and throw it open in terms of it being a fully two-way conversation. And if that's what staff suggests we need to do, that sounds fine. Just make sure we stay in alignment with the law, and of course with the ombudsperson and with all the various sort of aspects that we have to move forward. And if for some reason there is a concern, I don't wish to be referred to as a doubting Debbie or a doubting Thomas, but I do want to just make sure that we are above the law and we're doing things properly. So I don't think there's room for names here. There's just I want to make sure that we're doing this properly. And if that means we shift over to something like a town hall, so be it. Thank you.
I'm just going to put this back to staff briefly, just because I think there's town halls do they have an official status in any way, shape, or form, or is it? Maybe you can just clarify, because I've heard that term used in community gatherings, and I just want to understand under the Local Government Act and our limitations what that actually refers to.
Your
Mr.
Worship, anytime the 4 of the 7 of you get together, I think the law is going to say that you are in a meeting. There's a quorum of council. So the question would be, why wouldn't you want to just you can have a meeting of council with no agenda other than to invite public input. And I think you could accomplish the same thing. And I really appreciate Councillor Green's desire to not have staff as involved maybe as might otherwise be required. But if you're getting together as 4 of you, that's a meeting. And there's really not any way around that. So if you want to have these meetings, that's fine. And I think staff understand the value that you might get out of those. I think that's important. But they will need to be meetings. If there's more than 4 of you there, that is a meeting. There's a quorum of you, and at some point, whether you like it or not, you are advancing the decisions of the district by listening to people coming to those meetings. So that's a good thing, though. And but to do that, it will be a meeting.
Ms. Varela?
And just to add one qualifier, Your Worship. So a meeting or a gathering or whatever you could call it is distinctly different than 4 or more council coming together at a social gathering, which clearly the business of the council isn't being advanced or discussed. So for example, the tea party. Whereas it would be much harder to hold the line in an informal setting where dialogue will happen, opinions will be overheard. People are going to take you on about items that are near and dear to your heart, such as secondary suites, things that matter to the community. It's a real challenge to keep those as not advancing the business of council. But staff's put their recommendation forward, and it's there for you. And it does, as I say, we feel it best reflects the Ombudsperson's best practice guide approach.
Councillor Appleton?
Can I just add one other thing? So, Councillor Zelka talked about the procedure bylaw, which thank you for that. But the Municipal Act and the Local Government Act and the Community Charter override anything that we have, and that would be that. The legislation that would govern us.
I think what I took from that, and I would agree with him, is that we have a lot of flexibility within the meeting to run it as we see fit. So like we did with strategic planning, we didn't follow our sort of standard model. We opened it up procedurally within that meeting. But I hear what you're saying about the actual formation of the meeting itself. Councillor Appleton, you had something to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to confirm through you to staff, just to confirm in the report, it indicates that the preferable, if it was to be organized as a meeting of council, it would be a committee of the whole. So this would be a special committee of the whole. Would that be correct?
Yes, Councillor, that is the recommendation of staff.
Do we do we have a motion on the floor for this at this stage of the game?
Yes, Councillor Green has moved her motion. It's sufficiently general in that it's we could operate these in any way we see fit. I think this is just we have a motion on the floor, so we can talk to it. If there's direction we're going to give to the structure, this is the chance to give it.
Can I propose an amendment to the motion?
You may, of course.
Okay. Then potentially just rather than reading, be it resolved that Oak Bay Municipal Council will host one meeting, where it says one meeting, that rather to amend this to read, therefore be it resolved that Oak Bay Municipal Council will host one special committee of the whole meeting in each of the North Central and South Oak Bay neighborhoods in 2019. The purpose of these special committee of the whole meetings will be to engage with residents on issues of local interest. However, no commitments, undertakings, or decisions will be made by council members.
The motion's there. I need a seconder to talk to it. I don't have a seconder.
I'll second it in the interest of advancing
Okay.
meetings with our residents.
Councillor Appleton, you've made the motion to amend, so is there, I get the intent is fairly clear, but is there anything you want to add?
I just wanted to note that I concur with your comments that the quorum issue is the biggest issue for me here. If we're going to have quorum of council at these, I think councillors should feel the ability to attend these meetings as they see fit and are available to. I would hate to see us be in a situation where, to avoid creating quorum, that we had to limit the number of councillors that could attend. That's the flip side to that potential argument, is if it's structured informally, then you can't have more than 4 council mayor and council members at that meeting. So that presents a problem for me. So I favor the idea of making it a more structured meeting and just having the only business of that meeting to hear from members of the public.
Okay, Councillor Green, it is your motion. Do you have, how are you feeling right now about the making it a committee of the whole versus the?
Well, I would be dishonest if I said I wasn't feeling a bit frustrated, because I've been participating in meetings like this. We have a host of municipalities in the region that are doing this now, but I respect the input of staff on this issue of quorum. I respect Councillor Appleton's input, Councillor Zelka's, well, everyone's, in fact, and I appreciate the support. And so I'm prepared to accept the amendment if that enables us to have these meetings, because I think they're important, and I think I agree with whoever said it doesn't matter what they're called as long as we hold them. And only 3 in the fall, hopefully October, November, December. Then I'm envisioning that they would be evaluated at the end of the year for their usefulness. And I'm quite happy to participate in that to ease the burden for staff. But trust me when I tell you that these are very well received by residents and communities. I know that because I've been part of them. And I have spoken with colleagues. I have a meeting tomorrow with 2 of the councillors in the city of Victoria to get more details about their meetings and how they work them. I think they just had one, actually. They, in fact, called it a town hall. But I think a town hall for me speaks of a larger venue with an agenda and that kind of thing. These are meant to be informal and more personal. And I understand the concerns around the legality. But I guess my question is, how do other municipalities get around that issue? By conducting them. So that would be an interesting conversation to have in the future. But I will support the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Just for the record, the changes to one special committee of the whole meeting in each month. You don't have to repeat these meetings will engage in. We have to say it twice in a piece of that. Got it down here. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, sir, very much, Chair. I will not be supporting the amendment. I appreciate where the councillor is coming from in terms of the legality, but I take solace in that staff has already clarified that a meeting is a meeting and a gathering is a gathering, and never the twain shall meet. So because this is already described as a meeting, and we already know legally what a meeting is, and we know there's going to be an agenda, and we know it's going to be under procedures bylaw, and we know it's going to have that formality already met, I would rather keep it just a little more relaxed instead of trying to give it a rather technical name that might, in the end, actually scare people off. So I prefer the wording as it is. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I also will not be supporting the amendment. I thought the original motion as it was presented was a better option for us going forward. I trust that members of council can manage the meeting, or whatever term we want to use it, effectively so that we are not conducting business at the meeting. I thank staff for their input on that. It's wise guidance, but I think that they can be managed effectively. My concern about having them as committee of the whole is it may set the tone just as another meeting of council, and I don't think that that was what the intent was. My understanding of this is that the meetings will be primarily for all of us around the table as members of council to listen to the community, to hear what they want to tell us, not to be conducting council business. And I think that that can be managed effectively, and I think that the skills do exist at the table to do it in a manner so that we are not conducting business, we are following the guidelines the staff have given us, and we will take care to manage the process wisely.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I'll just speak. If I'll try and convince you back the other way on this one, because I think the other side of that might hold true as well. The wording that Oak Bay Municipal Council will host one meeting each, so it implies that council is holding the meeting. Council is a legislative body. Committee of the whole makes it clear that we're not sitting as a legislative body, that we're actually sitting as an informal body of that same council. So I think there's a value to that word, and I would suggest my expectation would be, and I think we can work with this within the parameters of this, that the invitation would not say committee of the whole. It would say, special committee of the whole welcomes all members of the community to a special discussion with councillors or something. So it gives us a legislative framework piece, and I would personally feel more comfortable with the wording as committee of the whole, but I think it helps give clarity that we're definitely not meeting as council, like this body, which is legislative, but are in fact meeting just as a committee and just as in an informal fashion. So I will support that motion as it's laid forward. Any other discussion on the amendment, which is to add the committee of the whole wording? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? To oppose, Councillor Zalka, Councillor Patterson opposed. So we now have an amended agenda, or amended motion, sorry, which has the wording committee of the whole attached, but otherwise stays is intact from Councillor Green. Is there anything else that Councillor Green you wanted to add?
I would like to add just that when we communicate that these meetings are occurring, that we really emphasize that they are community-based, that the intention is community-based, and that we are there to listen and to hear what matters to our residents 3 times a year. I'm hoping we can do that so that it doesn't just feel like another form of business.
Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. So what we can do is we can actually bring that public invitation back to council for your input to make sure we hit your target.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I think it's worth maybe just bouncing that back and forth with Councillor Green and maybe Councillor Braithwaite as well, just to get a sense of the tone of that, or Councillor Zelka as well, who was quite involved with the creating of the Coffee with Councillors notion in that original piece. So it may be worth just circulating around a little bit. Councillor Zelka?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to clarify, and maybe through you to Councillor Green, is the intention of this motion to have a two-way dialogue, or is it where we sit silent and we receive, but we're not allowed to say a thing? So I would just, which sounds stilted to me, but unfortunately sometimes in legislative or public hearings, those sort of things, we can't do certain things. So I just wanted to clarify, is it a two-way dialogue that's being looked for here? Something a little informal where we can actually share our opinions, even though we're not making decisions?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Zelka, thank you for the questions and comments. They are not intended, we're not there to share opinions, we're there to share information. So it is a two-way, it can be a two-way dialogue, but one of us might have information about one of the committees that we represent, so we may want to add that. But my understanding and my previous experience is that we don't share opinions, we share information. And there is a two-way, that there is some two-way, but we do not sit as stones, no. In a public hearing, it's very you know, it's very prescriptive, but not necessarily in these kinds of meetings.
We have that not stone in the description. Is that
But
captured?
not as a rock.
Yes. All right. So, Councillor Zelka.
So then, just practically speaking, just wondering how this is going to turn out, because we're not calling it a town hall, and town hall, I know, is a little more freeform. Does that mean the chair will be listening to see if an opinion is shared, or staff might have to jump up and say, hold on a second, you can't say that, or I just was wondering how, does this need to be policed? Because sometimes it's hard to know what we can and cannot talk about in this sort of situation. Because I'm wanting to be informal, and with the coffee with councillors that I had before, the intention was that it was deliberately informal. It was also set up on the previous mandate that I organized, that it would not have the quorum was there, so there was a lot of flexibility to do all sorts of things. I was just wondering how that might work out before I vote in favor of this.
I've got Mr. Jones waving his hand. I think it's something we can manage at the table, but
Your Worship, I think what the CEO said was that we're going to bring forward to you a proposal to how to manage this meeting, and that would be something that we will take your direction from, and obviously you will make the decision on how that works. But we'll come back to you with, here's what we think, and you can make your suggestions, recommendations, changes, etc. And we will implement your decisions.
If I may, I think, well, this now, we're structuring it just in recognition of the legal requirements of gatherings and meetings. This is an informal gathering, and I think we can play this a little bit by ear and see what works and what doesn't at the table. I'm very happy to police that. If there's a staff person there as well, I'm sure we'll have a little, whoa, don't say that. But I think for the most part, we'll be able to get along with this just fine. I'm actually not concerned about the actual meetings themselves. Okay, Mr. Jones, do you have anything else to add?
Councillor, thank you, Your Worship. You're absolutely right. You can make these informal. We just need to satisfy our legislative requirements around things like advertising, right? So we'll call it a special committee of the whole in small print, town hall in big print, or something like that to, I think, respond to what we're hearing from council.
Thank you. Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very briefly, I would be remiss that if I didn't state unequivocally for the record the value and what Councillor Green has brought forward here, and that I believe very firmly in why this is being brought forward and the importance of doing it. I concur with the comment that was just made that this is about satisfying the legalities, and I think that we can structure this any way that we like, but I don't want my comments about that to detract from me stating really unequivocally that I do believe this is a good idea and something that's going to be important for the community.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Patterson.
Just a final comment, because Councillor Braithwaite did touch on it, and she did bring a resolution forward in the previous council to have a town hall meeting, and it did not move forward. And so now that we have made the decision around the table, I think that it is important that we move forward to actually set target dates for the meetings.
Thank you for that. And I would say this is now a motion of council formally adopted if it goes forward. So that would essentially bind us to that requirement. So, but I think, Ms. Varela?
Your Worship, staff could take that away if once council adopts a resolution, propose some dates, make that an iterative discussion with council, and then we'll implement as per our action list once we've received the resolution. So
thank you very much. Councillor Green?
And I just want to thank staff and my council colleagues for their support, and thank you, Councillor Appleton. I know I understood your intention. I appreciate it, but I've appreciated everybody's input. Thank you.
All right, so we have the amended motion as amended on the table, and all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. I need a motion to adjourn.
I will move that in accordance with Section 91A, C, E, and K of the Community Charter, that the open portion of the meeting of council be adjourned and that a closed session be convened to discuss personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality, labor relations, or other employee relations, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected affected or harm the interests of the municipality in negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provisions of municipal service that are at the preliminary stages, and that, in the view of council, could reasonably